All right, going live. Let's just get the word out while we're doing that. I realized that typo right after I hit send. Well, social issues is just a little bit off. Good Lord, Tim. Welcome to a Tuesday edition of the Bonnet Chronicles. As I said before, I am going to be doing 2 of these a week. Oh my goodness, I thought I put that laundry in the wash. I'm having a day, y'all. It has been a kind of rough day, but it's all right. Like I said, we're doing 2 of these a week now to remind people of what's at stake. We'll be talking about politics stuff to remind you that we do have a very important midterm election. A lot of you have local races that you should be paying attention to, but also to just keep awareness strong within our society because there's a war going on. There's a cultural war, and there's an actual physical war going on in Ukraine. And our media would instead highlight stuff like this. Now I'm going to play this video and a couple of other videos because I need you to see the levels of ignorance and idiocy that we have going on.
Is this a crusade? Yeah, I believe it's a people's crusade. Doesn't it can be peaceful, but it's a crusade in the fact that people have
Freedom.
to fight the evil in the world now. And the evil well, you're heading down to the evil in the world, and people have to band together and fight on the side of the Lord. God wills it, man.
Fox wanted to do a story on descent into the
What even is that? Notice the demographic, y'all. Notice the master race, allegedly. Hey, Beans.
Is this a crusade?
And this isn't even the only one. Yeah. I saved a couple of these because it's just this one too. Without words, the amount of open-faced ignorance. Exactly, Beans. Just the history nerd in me just says, what? Hey, Solomon Oz, welcome to the chat. But this lady, she's just, wow. Control. We're going to talk about that tonight, too. Female robots. I make fun of it, but it's exhausting, the level of stupidity that some people embrace. Considering that the sci-fi novel that I did finish, and I'm going to get out there, y'all. I'm going to get to that tonight, too, on the journey that has been right in the book and trying to get it out there. I've always thought that our path to human evolution would require some digital upgrades, and to have people like that say things like, oh, they're creating female robots. It's like, are you freaking kidding me? They are so afraid of the future and what it means for them that they will fight tooth and nail against it. Welcome to the chat, G. Feldman, and thank you. What's scary is this convoy makes absolutely no sense. They know they make no sense, but they don't care. They look forward to people like her who are just asinine and just willing to be proper foot soldiers for fuckery, as I like to call them. And then you've got the other side. You got white women who take our pain, stories of our historical horrors, and make them about themselves. And there's just so much that feeds into this crappy society structure that we have. And you have these people who are legitimately taking our pain, inserting themselves unnecessarily into that. And then you have the other side who want to deny our pain altogether as they're the cause of it. And those of us that are affected by this are just saying, why can't we just be? This isn't working. And it's hard when you see the problem, you call it out, and you've got people that even look like you saying, oh no, you're being too woke. Being too woke is the problem. It's not the actual problems that are causing the hurt, the division, the death. No, it's the fact that you noticed it and you're speaking about it, that they want it to stop. And it's why these people can make these ridiculous convoys protesting something that's literally here to keep them safe. It's why you have these plays being written about a tragedy that should have never happened. That was never, justice never happened for Emmett Till. But now we get to see a play about how a white woman felt about his death. And this is the norm that's going on in 2022, and I need this simulation to stop. Because it's not okay. I talk about history because I love history. I love real history. One of the things that Mr. Kudik, who I will never stop thanking, did for me was give me a fostered love of true history. Not the bullshit that you see in history books, but the actual real stories that they don't want to put on the covers because they think, oh, it'll damage kids, it'll traumatize them. No, it'll teach them where we came from. There's a reason why that idiot decided I need to act like a crusader. Some of these people literally think the Crusades were a good thing. I tell people all the time, I love history, but I don't want to live in the past. The lack of hygiene. Some of these people, like, we live in a town that's, like, really close to another town that loves to call themselves Victorian because they think the Victorian era was just prim and proper and perfect. You had arsenic wallpaper, toys that could literally kill you, and people literally walked around in poop and had to have people come and transport poop out of their house. It was not a good time. You have these people that hearken to the 50s especially, too. A lot of Americans seem to like the 50s if they're of a certain demographic, and that is because to them, it was that veneer of the proper American life where the guy worked and earned the living and the female stayed home and took care of house at home. They don't want to talk about the depression and misery, the women who literally drank themselves to death, the men who under the pressures of society of being a breadwinner thus came home and abused their wives. No, because they put on that fancy veneer of the 50s was a great time and we should all harken back to it. But don't be black in the 50s. Don't be LGBT in the 50s. Don't be anybody that doesn't conform to the rigid standards. There is a reason why they had such a counter-culture revolution in the 60s and 70s. Why drugs and alcohol was so prevalent in destroying homes because the need to escape the toxic pressures of a societal standard that wasn't meant for all of us. And historically speaking, we humans have done this to ourselves. From the very beginning in our society, we uplifted and put people on pinnacles that didn't deserve. If you were violent and bigger and able to bully others, instead of saying, no, we're not going to allow this, we gave you crowns and called you kings. We allowed you to tell women that your bodies are only good for what you can pump out for us, and that we'll just use you up and discard you, and that's the way society should be. And then got mad when some women said, no, that's not us. We're going to seek knowledge. We got called witches, which is why I embrace being a witch, and burnt and killed for it. And violence always seems to be the answer, historically speaking, for those who don't want to see their fragile grip on control. And that's the thing that these so-called powerful beings don't want you to understand. Their grip is fragile. It's not that hard to topple people who think they're in power. Putin's going to feel that because, historically speaking, people who act like him never fucking win. But they can't get it through to themselves because they have been gassed up by a society that goes, oh, you want to bully people? You want to have compromise on people? You want to make people feel like they should fear you? We'll give you a place as a leader. And then these people drain their area. These people make things unstable and chaotic until their people go, we don't need this anymore. This despot isn't good for us. Let him have an accident. Rinse and repeat. It happened several times over. Some people forget about places like Sarajevo, Milosevic. I don't. He caused mass genocide. I think he's either dead or in a jail cell rotting away now. That is the end game for most of these guys. Whether people understand that or not, there is never a happy ending for those types because they were uplifted on false terms. Putin's whole methodology is cruelty, telling people that they can't exist how they deserve to exist, telling women what their place is. And sure, you get enough ignorant people who have only been trained by the societal standards to accept that lot in life. Give them just enough education, just enough leans towards power to where they go, no, this is fine. My neighborhoods are burning. I'm not happy really, but this is fine because I feel a little bit better than this group of people. I feel a little bit more powerful, making them feel afraid and unsafe. We have done this to ourselves, but it's not something that can't be undone. But we have to call it out. And we have to call it out despite the pushback, despite people going, oh, you're being too woke. How dare you see an issue that negatively impacts somebody, whether they look like you or not, and speak up on it to stop it. I make my money complaining about those things. You can't call it out. You can't cancel somebody who's negatively impacted people. How am I supposed to get my funds? What if I told you we should be past that in our society now? What if I told you that it is possible for humans to exist without putting a monetary value on themselves, without the constant need to flaunt shit that don't matter? What if I told you that the only thing stopping that is us? It's not that crazy to think of how exactly means. How many people have fought against the changes that are going to happen? How many people take facts and science as this hurts my feelings so I don't want to deal with it versus asinine stuff? Like you're literally putting your big butt in a big rig to drive around America, waste your gas, which the prices are going up on that, y'all, whether you like it or not, to protest something that was meant to keep you safe versus real issues impacting our society. Real things that we could tackle. Things that we have been educated to try to ignore. That veneer of everything's fine when it's not. The fact that our educational system is hardly a place for education. The teachers who really just want to foster kids in the learning, show them how things are, get them to understand it, are stymied by the school won't get funding if they can't prove that they understand stuff with tests that aren't designed by the way kids' brains work, especially kids with neurodivergence. Our system needs to evolve, and it's not, because people would rather protest because they have been crafted into ignorance. You see it all the time. Exactly, G. Feldman. Superpowered, though. They embrace this ignorance because they've been taught it's easier for them. But it really isn't. That's why so many of them are angry. That's why you see videos of these white women that get out there and they yell and they scream and they want to control things in restaurants. They make things for customer service people a tense time. Because they go home to a husband that's like, I don't value you besides what's between your legs. The kids don't like them because they have to take all that aggression that they feel not having a voice in the house out on them. The resentment is real because we're not allowed to just be. And it's made worse because we get put in a system of, especially with current education, where if you're not at a certain standard by a certain age, you're either left behind or made to feel inadequate. And nobody wants to go to a place where they don't understand stuff and get told, well, you're not understanding it fast enough, so you're not good enough in this system. I look, and historically speaking, The school systems were set up to really sort us like grains. Some people were always meant to just be fodder and feed and stepped on. And it's not good. It's why so many of us have social anxieties. So many of us, despite showing intelligence, are always afraid to speak up and actually continue to learn. And so many make excuses. That small town mentality has been dangerous to our society for the longest time. Because I've seen what goes on in small towns. Oh, it's okay. You don't have to know that. You don't have to know the truth. The truth is bad. It'll make you feel bad about yourself. Instead of, no, this will open my eyes to stuff I don't want to repeat. This will make me understand that it's not just about me. It will make me be a better person. But the people who have the most power and control, they don't want that. They understand that the way they keep their place in this fucked up, messed up society is to have us not be too woke, as they call it. Not call out this asinine ridiculousness when it comes to that lady. She used the word digitile when I'm pretty sure she meant digital. She is afraid that we're going to become robots when I'm hopeful that we have a fusion of nanoid technology that will one day enhance our bodies in ways that we should. But I know that scares certain people because they don't want an equal playing field. They never did. They are elevated above us in their mind, even though that they know that's not real. They know if given an equal playing ground, if given equal education, if given a chance to just be, we'll thrive. And for some reason, they have banked their whole existence on them thriving and other people suffering because for some reason, that's their dopamine hit. And it has to stop because it's not sustainable, y'all. I know it feels like I'm preaching, but it is so detrimental to us right now that these people are loud, these people are controlling the narrative, and they're making it where it's exhausting to exist. Exactly. And don't tell me that these theocrats, as I like to call them, aren't the main culprits of the noise. Because they want to usher in destruction. They think that destruction is the cause. And I tell Christians all the time that are willing to listen, because you know that there are a lot of them that are loud like this, they don't want to hear it. They have given so much weight to the negative portions of that book, thinking that it will usher them into a positive, ignoring the core stories of why we're here. We're supposed to love each other. We're supposed to take care of one another. I know that's not realistic. There are people that I don't fuck with. I just can't. I don't want to be bothered with them. It's not that they don't deserve the right to exist. I just don't want to be around them. That's the reality of being human. But I can respect their right to be here. I can understand that I shouldn't be a cause of pain and misery to them. And that a lot of humans don't do that. And they base their belief system off a book that tells them that this is our paradise. Life was our gift. But they don't take that message. They take the war and the fighting and the strife and all the dark themes because that interests them more than anything else. They utilize this book to justify horrors in our society. And now all they want to do is usher in our destruction. They go, well, it's for our own good. And how? How is causing untold pain and death good for anybody? You can't make that nonsense make sense. They exactly means. They will tout Jesus up and down, wear a cross around their neck as they expout hate for people. As they tell people, oh, you're different from me. I can't love you. I've got to shun you. I've got to rebuke you. I'm going to ignore the fact that a lot of abuse goes on in my own home, within my church. The person that I listen to preach is probably doing insidious stuff. I'm going to look away because one day I might get into an afterlife that is paradise, ignoring the fact that the Bible itself said this is supposed to be our paradise. And the way we treat people is so important, is so vital to who we are. And so many people just do awful things thinking that they're doing the right thing, and they're doing it in the name of righteousness, and it's got to stop. The most exhausting thing about faith right now for me, not that people believe, because I honestly think it is a good guide path, but it's the loud, awful people that use it to shun, to use it like it's a country club and that it's an exclusive lot, instead of a set of values that help keep people whole, help keep people focused, help give us purpose to why we're here. So many people have historically twisted faith to whatever means they could, whether it's to make money for themselves, to keep people in line. The worst part are the people that use fear in it. You're not supposed to fear God. I don't understand why anybody would want to deal with a deity that you just fearful of. And it just boggles my mind how many people want a society that's under God's wrath, ushering in destruction because it'll be better for us. We'll be reborn in some better place. And it's like, I like the place I'm on for what it is. It's a big, beautiful planet. I just don't like the people I'm sharing it with, because some of y'all are awful roommates. You're loud. You use awful things to escape, and then you get mad when people point it out. You want to fight and you murder people when you have a bad day. People only want to talk about mental health when you have a bad day. Get a gun, take a whole bunch of lives because only you're centered. We allow society to act like you are at the pinnacle because of a skin pigment versus your actual virtues. And because you know that it's a fake veneer. So many of you act out because you know that on an even playing field, you'd have to work harder. You'd have to do more because that's what is required to live. Thank you. And welcome to the chat, Terry Antico. And I know it's hard to hear, but the truth hurts sometimes. And then after a while, it doesn't hurt because you realize that's not me anymore. I don't have to fake my way through life. What you see is what you get because it's easier to be that way. I think it's harder for people, and that's why so many act out when they act like, well, nothing's wrong. I don't see color. Talking about racism is worse than the racism. They know they're not being real. They know they're not being genuine. That's why they lash out. They say, I'm being canceled for my bigoted thing. Now I'm feeling the consequences of my actions. People don't want to deal with my dumbass for now. But nobody has ever really been canceled for their bigoted thoughts. That's why Ricky Schroeder, who I wish would just go away, can trend every once in a while. So I'm going to be in a trucker convoy. Well, nobody's hiring you to act, so you do you, weirdo. That's why people push back against any sort of change that makes you think on a social conscious level, that elevates your emotional maturity a bit more. Because it is a painful process at first. You're burning away all that toxic negative that we have been societally trained to ingest. Whether you're forced to believe in a certain gender role, whether it's that toxic machismo that's like, I'm a man, I have to be tough, I have to be this, I have to be that. I'm not allowed to show feelings, that's a weakness. I've talked about it several times and I'll never stop. It is not weakness to have emotions. It's dangerous not to have emotions. One of the problems I have as a sociopath is I detach from my emotions way too well, and I have to work on that. It's okay to feel things. But some of you want to detach from feelings because feelings are weak. It's not weakness. It's what we were born with. And then for women, we're told, you gotta be frilly and feminine and protected. And I understand the duality of wanting that. One of the things that I'm doing, because I really wanted to write a story that centered black women. And I had a conversation with myself earlier, because I'll do that. I'm not ashamed of that. Where I noted that so many shows that could have shown how we are, very well diversity, don't do it. 90s was full of them. full of places that had black faces, but they didn't want to show us. Had Hispanic faces, Indian faces, Southeast Asian faces as well. Didn't want to show us. We don't exist in entertainment. So I was like, I could keep bitching about it or I could write. And I've been working on it. But one of the things that I have had a problem with is that duality as a woman. That I understand I want to feel loved and protected at times. But I also want to feel tough enough to handle my own shit. And I think a lot of black women go through that. We feel that need to have our own back because we always tend to have our own back, but we also feel that side need of wanting to be that princess too. Wanting to be loved and felt like she's desirable, she's beautiful, she's, not fragile, but somebody protected. Having that knight that wants to defend our honor. Because we're never that person in storybooks. And it's that duality that so many of us go through because our society has structured us to feel like that's our role. We have to be. We're the weaker of the species, and no, we're not. There's another reason why I gravitated to stories like the Amazons. Why I love stuff like Themyscira. Because I thought, what would a society ran by women be like? But I had to pump the brakes with that because I didn't like the thought of casting out boys because sons weren't allowed. The history of the Amazons weren't always that great. Now, black Amazons, which a lot of people don't talk about, were actually amazing. And no, they didn't cast their sons out, but they were badass fighters that I think the Dora Milaje from Black Panther were modeled after. There is a wealth of historical knowledge about humans who said, I am not going to push for societal norms. We are going to do things our way, and that we need to emulate more. We need more individuality. We need people to not be afraid to be who they are, whether you're unapologetically geeky or just that average person that gets excited for the newest video game or whatnot. We need to be able to be us. And it's hard because society has modeled us to go after people who are miserable but can fake their way. Oh, I'm that intellectual turtleneck guy. I know my stuff. I can talk eugenics, which is an awful topic, which I shit on other humans for genetic looks or whatever looks I don't deem right. You should listen to me because I wear a turtleneck and I'm a white guy and I can tell you that I am the pinnacle, even though I'm a miserable SOB who is prone to fits of violence when I don't get my way. It is like we as a society rewarded toddlers with the highest place in our society and we're just expected to accept it. And when they don't get their way, they respond cruelty and then we're like, oh no, they're going to get mad and kill things and be upset, so we need to appease them. One of the things that bothered me about that Emmett Till thing earlier today was having somebody say to me that the way this woman wrote this play was probably be what white people needed to hear the story. And it's like, why? One of the things my grandmother had was a copy of that Jet magazine. And I'll never forget it because I was young when I first seen it, of Emmett Till's funeral, because Mamie Till decided that the world needed to see what hate did to her baby. And I remember asking my grandmother, what did they do to him? His face was disfigured. And so I got to hear the story of Emmett. Going down to South Carolina to visit some relatives. Hanging out with his friends. And that Bradley woman said he whistled at her. There was no proof that he did any of those things. But white women have this way about them. A power move, as they like to call it, where they could see if they could sit the man on that N-word boy. Because that's how how Myra, whatever that Bradley woman's name was. She was an N-word too. I don't want to use a curse word, but you know how I feel about her. She wanted to exert the only bit of power she could have, which was sick these racist men on Emmett. And they beat him, choked him out, drowned him in the river, tied a motor with a chain around his neck, and floated that 14-year-old child's body. And he was far from the only one who had to feel that kind of pain. They didn't care how old we are. They didn't care if we were men, women, or in between. That's how hate was back in the day. And Mamie took her baby's picture, that open casket funeral, so that the world could see how awful hate is. He was a beautiful young man, and he was destroyed by just the evil of ignorance, the evil of not seeing fellow human beings as that because of a skin color. And to have somebody take that story, insert themselves as a fictional character, because to her it was more important for the audience to see how she as a white woman feels about Emmett Till's death than the actual story itself. She couldn't take Mamie's story and write it in that vein, because it's too hard for some of you to think about how another person feels. Mamie and Emmett's story is powerful enough without inserting us in it. Even as a black mom, even as I've seen that picture over and over, thinking that could have been my son. That could still be my son, because we live in a society where our children end up a hashtag. I don't have to tell Emmett Till's story putting myself in it. And that is the problem with some white people. Y'all can't speak for us because you can't not put it in the veins of how it makes y'all feel. And it's not about you. And I know it's hard to hear, and I know that makes me too woke for some of you, but it's the truth. This story was horrific, and this story happened, and this story is far from the only one that happened. And we need to stop it. And calling it out isn't being too woke, but the opposite effect of that is having somebody insert themselves loudly. It really reminds me of the story of somebody that I respect, that I gamed with back in the day, arguing with me about BLM. And I know BLM has its problems now. I know a lot of people have incorporated it to utilize whatever talking point they want, good, bad, and a lot more bad than good. But back when I was very vocal for BLM, I had it out with a friend who is a white woman who just couldn't understand why she gave money to the cause. Why can't they listen to white people a bit more? Why can't we stand in front of the line protesting with you? And it's like, the fact that you want to stand in front of the line, the fact that you want to talk over our voices is a problem. The fact that you think your weight in this situation carries over us is a problem. The fact that we are saying our lives matter and you're still making it about you is the problem. Because there's an inequality in this equation that we need to stop if we're going to have any kind of harmony and balance. And there are too many people invested in not having equality that are loud, ignorant, and causing so much stagnation for us. When we say Black Lives Matter, we're not saying only Black Lives Matter. We're saying we are tired of being snuffed out. We see how society historically has treated us, and it's not okay. But for some of you joining in, instead of saying, okay, I just want to be here, I want to listen, I want to lend my support, I want to give my shoulder to you when you're tired, some of you just center it because you see, this is a big group. I can say something that seems woke, make a lot of friends from it, and then step in it. That's a problem. And I'm not even saying my community is perfect, but I can't even get on our issues because we are literally being suffocated by the hate. You want things to be better for everybody. And trust me, we have our own problems with toxic male culture, toxic female culture, stuff that I would love to focus on. Black, LGBT, especially trans, need our voices. But we are all just trying to survive, not being the next hashtag. And it's hard. I would love to be able to really systematically focus on my community's issues. But we have a big-ass beast that's literally snuffing the life out of us, that allowed men like Derek Chauvin to kneel on the neck of George Floyd, take his breath away, and think he was going to get away with it. And thank God that didn't happen. But it's happening constantly. It's why assholes like that Kyle Rittenhouse kid could cross state lines, murder 2 people, have a judge pretty much let him get off, and now he's doing a tour like he's innocent. And get him, I'm going to sue you if you call me a murderer. You literally took 2 lives. You literally got into a car with a gun with the intent to harm people. And the state of Wisconsin might have let you off because they're fucked up too. But it doesn't change the fact of what you did. And it's like I said all the time. I really hope that the Christian version of their heaven is real, because some of yous really ain't getting in it if it is. If it is the stringent requirement that you love to remind us to get into that paradise, y'all ain't getting the keys to that kingdom. I know it's hard for you to hear because a lot of you are, I'll put my finger in my ear. I believe my way, and even though my way is harmful, hurtful, and hateful, I'm fully embracing it. It's not going to work. And welcome to the chat, Respect, and that is the disgusting part. So many people make money off of it. Because if you can convince enough people that what you're saying is righteous enough, if you can put enough force and emphasis in it, they'll look away. And then the church itself is crafted to be a social structure where ostracizing feels like the end of the world. So many people have expressed, especially leaving, calling themselves evangelicals especially, how alone they feel because the community outright shuns them for not embracing that toxic culture. Some of them have come from churches where their pastors were outright bullies from the pulpit, abusing their power and position in society in the name of God. How is that allowed in this day and age? Faith is supposed to be a guide, and I will not stop saying that. But when you have the person that's trying to help you, the person that's supposed to teach you what that guide is about, be awful, of course you're going to have foot soldiers for fuckery. Little minions who make this into a toxic country club instead of an opening, encompassing guide to life. And that's a problem. Like I said, historically speaking, our society has uplifted all the wrongs, all the toxic, all the negative aspects of what it means to live as the pinnacles, and shun anything that would really help us. Compassion, understanding, change. Change is the biggest thing. And it's painful to people. Exactly, Terry. And I think that's the goal for them. They think, well, if we have enough people that think like us, they'll make us money. They'll raise my status. And it doesn't matter if they agree with me, because the moment they step out of line, I can kick them out, thus destroying them. And it's not alright. It's why so many people lean into ignorance. It's why in the year 2022, we're still talking book bans and other ways that people want to deny knowledge. And I know that the system isn't perfect, but we can't even begin to fix it because people don't want to acknowledge the issues in the first place. I watched a video earlier today and I refused to show it because I have to stop myself from traveling to Indiana with a bat and finding that guy. I know he's in jail right now, but seeing a teacher hit a child so hard that his head goes into a wall. And I'm glad they arrested him, but the caption was, if this was your child, it wouldn't be. Because I've made it clear several times, and I'm not afraid to say, you fuck with my child, I'm coming after you. I know I'll probably go to jail for it, but I'm going to make it worth it. I legit do not understand how somebody who goes into education could get to the point where they physically assault a child, but that is the problem with our society. We have a lot of angry, temperamental people in places they shouldn't be. That man chased that child down because they were wearing a hoodie. It weren't even a black child. It was just a child wearing a hoodie that they decided they were going to chase down, yell at, and then physically assault. For every teacher that I have liked and respected, there are far too many like that teacher. Too many people in that position where they can shape young minds for the worst. And it has to stop. It is detrimental to our society that the place that we send our kids to be better people are just molding them into worse people. Teaching them, oh, your value is in what the peers think. Your peers don't even know who they are. Denying kids who they are based on antiquated notions of what makes a girl, what makes a boy. And heaven forbid if they're biologically born one way, but they know that that is not who they're supposed to be. Instead of society embracing them, allowing them to be who they are, they make laws targeting them and tell them that's just your lot in life. You need to struggle unnecessarily. There's absolutely no reason to be this cruel to people for being who they are, how they feel, except it's the way to control. It's that illusion of power. And it's so dangerous to who we are. When you tell people that their value and their worth are made in these weird structural roles for humans that not everybody can live up to because they don't make sense. And you tell a woman, oh, your only value is in having kids. What about women that can't have kids? Well, if they're pretty. That is so fucking ridiculous. And men too. Oh, you gotta be powerful. You gotta be smart. You've gotta have great money and all of this stuff. You wonder why so many guys are just bitter, angry, and resort to violence. Because from the get, they have a amount of pressure on their shoulders to live up to standards that were never meant for them in the first fucking place. And then they watch douchebags who just happen to look a certain way get elevated when they have absolutely no substance to them. You wonder why our society is broken? We can let somebody that is just an empty vessel that looks nice control how we view men. And it doesn't make sense. And then you slap, like I said, a turtleneck on some of them who can act a certain way because they lean into, oh, I'm an intellectual. Everything I say is awful and harmful and demean and dehumanizes other people, but I'm an intellectual. I'll tell you, it's okay to be a bigot because that's our place in society. I'll quote things like manifest destiny. I'll tell you that the only way to be a male is to make sure that the female in your life feels devalued because that is the way you have a hierarchy in your house. Not understanding that that hierarchy will eventually erode any relationship you have, leave you a bitter husk that will end up in the nursing home being abused because we are a bunch of bitter husks growing old because we don't get to value ourselves. We don't take care of each other. We reward cruelty over compassion, and we expect the system to sustain us all, and it cannot. It's not working because people don't want it to work. They don't want to put the work in to make it work, and it's exhausting. It really is sad. It really is opposite day for the master race, too. And I hate to just complain because there are solutions. But people don't want to believe in those solutions, and you got to. I tell people all the time, you think that stuff like this is just going to sway the masses. That's not the goal. My goal is to get everybody individually working on themselves. The way to the better world isn't through a group, sadly. As much as I would love for us to become a tribe again. I still believe in the tribe system, but that wasn't perfect. We had tribes that were war with each other over the stupidest of conflicts. I believe some of the core values of the tribe, though. Having each other's back. Everybody within its structure has worth and value. But even then, it wasn't 100%. I think we could take aspects of that into our individuality. Because that is what we need to embrace if we're going to get better as people. We need to stop placing value in this peer-reviewed system full of insecure people who don't even know or like what they see in the mirror, and focus on liking things about ourselves. Understanding that we don't have to beat at the same beat. We're not all banging the same kind of drums. We have to be okay with ourselves if we're going to be okay with other people. Because a lot of people aren't okay with themselves, and they carry that insecurity, that fear of themselves onto other people. It's why they embrace toxic hatred and bigotry so easily. Because it lets them forget for a moment that they don't like themselves, that they don't feel powerful. And that feeling of making somebody else miserable gives them a false sense of power. And it really does respect. Empathy and compassion isn't easy for me. And I'm going to be 100% honest. A lot of people think I'm more empathetic than I truly feel, because I can convey words in a way that touches people. And I don't go out of my way to do harm for people. But I really do disconnect myself from people outside the internet too. I just don't want to be bothered. I am extremely antisocial. And I think a lot of people don't understand that because it's the internet and you really can come across a certain way. But I do wholeheartedly believe that a world is better with compassion. A world is better when you, even if you don't fully understand what a person is going through, you listen and you amplify that. I don't have to be trans to understand that transgender people exist. They've existed since the dawn of our society. They've had their place in society constantly ridiculed, mocked, and been murdered for it, and it has to stop. I don't have to understand the LGBT part of society to realize that they exist and deserve to exist. Just like you shouldn't need a white woman whining about my life mattering to understand that it matters. I understand that your life matters. And it's funny how society has built us to coddle feelings of people who are hurting us. It is totally abuser syndrome. And it's got to stop. I would never coddle my ex's feelings. I don't wish him as much ill will as I used to, because I'll be honest, there were times where I wish he would just fall off something and not be here no more. But I realized that negativity, that toxicness, it's getting me nowhere. Hating him gets me nowhere. Letting it go and moving on with my life is the best medicine for both of us. But it's hard. And we really are devolving. People really want us stagnant. They want us stupid. It's why they're dressing up for the Crusades. It's why they even believe the Crusades was a good thing when millions of Christians got murdered. Children were murdered. Marching for a cause that really didn't even care about them. A church that was lining their pockets with gold while sending people to fight for the glory of stuff. It don't make sense. And this is what they long for, that ignorance, that I will show my worth through power. Dude, you're cosplaying in chainmail, driving a big rig truck, saying that you refuse to get something that could keep you here on this earth. You're not a crusader, you're a dummy. And there are far too many people out there like that, and it's exhausting. Because like I said, as a historical nerd, there's people who love to look back on our past in awe of the way we used to be and where we should be. I just keep seeing people wanting us to repeat the worst cycles of our history, and I have to tell them no. It's not okay. You hearkening to the Crusades, or you hearkening to even the 1950s is not okay, because there were people miserable there. And for all of those glory tales of those so-called heroes who were also miserable people who took out their aggression on innocent lives, you have those people who just wanted to show compassion and understanding and protect people. And those are who we should be emulating in our society. Not these fuck muppets who only want to measure the cruelty because they know they can't measure up under an equal society, and they don't really want to do the work to be better people. It has to stop, y'all. It really does. It is so exhausting seeing how much society could be, where we should be. We've known about outer space for centuries now. We have been able to travel to space for over 60 years. Yet we don't have a true working space program. We have billionaires that can shoot dick rockets up into space because that's their new playground. That's the new thing they're going to try to colonize. But we don't even have an understanding of the rock we're on and what's beyond because we're too busy fighting each other. We humans got to get our shit together. Because true knowledge and true working on our individualities without putting a monetary hurdle to it is the only way we're going to get better. But we have to currently work with the structure we're in, and it is a fucking flawed system. There is no reason why we should be struggling to make ends meet, to make somebody else feel more superior than us because they have more money. But here we are in the digital age arguing over a new currency system because we have placed value in shit that shouldn't have a value in the first place. We discourage people from learning, from growing, from being, from having a voice. Because that voice might make me feel bad instead of, hey, I feel a little bit bad for this. Let me try to understand why. You mean it's not okay to tell a person that they're different from me and thus that makes me uncomfortable? Why does it make me uncomfortable? People don't want to reflect or self-introspect, and it's got to stop. Why should how somebody lives their best life make you uncomfortable if they're not doing harmful things? And I get that there are some people that twist things. There are people out there that are marginalized, that utilize that status to do bad things, but they are the minority in this situation. And you cannot use them against people who are just trying to live their best life. And that is a problem I see when people argue against what I'm pushing for. Individuality terrifies them because they're so used to this fucked up structure of society that tells them that the only way you can be is if other people like you, other people raise you to a standard that wasn't meant for you in the first place. You got to acquire that wealth so that you can look apart. People are still going to not like you if you're wealthy or not. So why should that shit matter? We place so many unnecessary hurdles on living that I just don't understand. And maybe it is because I live my life in my head a lot. That it just feels exhausting doing this nonsense. And that the way to stop seems very simple. Just stop doing this nonsense. Realize that your worth is not in the hands of a monetary value or what others think of you. Realize that when you have true self-value and self-confidence, no one can take that from you, even if they try, because sadly, a lot of people try. And that when you have that, there's no reason to make it your point to tear anybody else down. Because your confidence shouldn't come from that. How I carry myself comes from the fact that I don't feel that way for people. I don't like being around people, and I'm 100% honest about that. But it's not because I hate y'all. I just hate the attitude some people give. I don't want to be around people that see my gender as a way to look down on me. I definitely don't want to be around people who see my skin tone as an issue. And it's just exhausting trying to act like it doesn't bother me anymore. I've lived on this earth way too long to hide how detrimental it's been. To feel lesser for no reason. And now that I'm not in that headspace, I don't put myself in a place where it could get to me again. And I know that I'm far from the only ones. This pandemic, the only silver lining I could take from it was it gave me the ability to fully say I am cutting off this toxic bridge to society. I refuse. And it set in motion my plan to start creating. That is the solution that I want people to get through their heads. I know it can't be done overnight. I am not one of those magical thinkers, even though I call myself a witch. I realize the work that's got to be put in. but I really want to build the community. I can either complain from the sidelines or I can take the initiative to put things together. I have a budgeting background. People tend to listen when I say things. I don't want to lead. I think the whole process of leading is exhausting. But if I can help work with people to put together a place where people can just live and be and grow and flourish and just feel a part of something by just being there, that is the goal. And I think a lot of people are feeling this way. We are tired of being in a society where it's exhausting peer pressure to live up to standards that don't even entertain us anymore. And we need more people willing to come together, do the work to have communities where people can grow, flourish, no matter who they are, no matter what they look like, and how we can just be educating ourselves constantly, because that's what our brains are here for. Way too many people, they just mentally cut themselves off from educating themselves. And we are literally in a time where you have devices that can give you knowledge. And not just the knowledge that makes you feel good. The knowledge that truly will educate you on the world around you so that you can make informed life decisions. We are our best arbiters, and I am determined to group so many of us together so that we have that safety and security of not being in a system that wasn't meant for us in the first place. I know it's going to take time. I know it's going to take work, but I am going to do this. I'm putting it out there because I want this so badly. I want this for me. I want this for you guys because it's time. I want people, despite having mental health issues, to be able to live in a community where they're not shunned and hated. Where people understand having them off days happen, but it's not the end of the world. Where people, despite so-called physical flaws, can live openly and happily. Where if you have creative streaks, you're not put down for it, but you're encouraged. Where your merit isn't just what you bring, but being here, because that is what life is about. And we have to stop putting those fucking unnecessary hurdles in our path. We're all meant to walk this path, but too many people have set a lot of unnecessary boundaries and rules that only benefit them, that hurt all of us in the long run. That we have to stop. And the only way to do that is to build our own communities and make it where we set the tones. And I'm determined now, y'all. Every time I talk to my family about this, I get more set and determined to make it happen because I'm tired of seeing our species hurt. And I'm tired of people not understanding that we are one species. We might come in different shapes, sizes, tones. We might have different cultural traditions, but we're still human beings. And we got to figure out a way to coexist with each other, or we are going to destroy the gift that we were given. And I don't understand how people aren't seeing this. But I do understand that this system has created that mental barrier for far too many of us. So I'm not here to try to change every single human's mind. I am here to gather up those of us who are feeling this way and put us together where we belong so that we can foster a whole new generation of humans that get this. That get that existence doesn't have to be painful. That we can just be. I'm going to get ready to wrap this up, y'all. Thank you so much for tuning in. I got dinner on. We're going to do chicken. I think I'm going to saute some chicken tonight because I'm just in the mood for it. I really appreciate y'all being here with me. I appreciate your chat all the time. I just really feel like these Bonnet Chronicles, they're like a therapy session, but they're also a way for me to show that it's possible to just live your life. Just be yourself. Being your authentic self is so important. And I know that not everybody's going to get it. Not everybody's going to get you. But you're not, as long as you're here for yourself, that's the most important. And I'm going to wrap this up. I will see you guys Friday night. Hopefully it'll be a less heavier topic, but the way things have been lately, it's going to be heavy topics. But these are important because it helps keep people focused. And I will see y'all in a bit. I'll have this up on YouTube soon. I love y'all. Y'all have a good night.